The Alberta budget is out. Now, what does that mean for Lethbridge and Southern Alberta? COVID-19 continues to present us with a lot of challenges, and where are we headed over the next few months? Joining me now to talk about some of these interesting challenges is Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Neudorf, joining me from his Lethbridge office. Nathan, the budget is forecasting an $18.2 billion deficit with annual interest payments on that debt hovering around $3 billion. Let me ask you, is this really sustainable?
Well, this is something that we had to do in the short term, Hal. When your private economy is struggling, you don't really want to cut out the legs of your public sector at the same time. We need to get our economy back on our feet. We've kept this fairly stable. Stability is really important in the marketplace right now. And we do have a path forward. I think you can talk to just about anybody out there. They recognize that tough times are tough times, and the government has to be there to stabilize things. And I think we've hit the mark on this budget.
What kind of feedback are you receiving from constituents, though, on this deficit budget?
Well, you know what? Again, we're getting, for the most part, we're getting a lot of understanding. This isn't where people would choose to be, but nor is a global recession or a war on the price of oil or a pandemic when we've been hit by all three. So I think, like I said, the message that the government wanted to send in this budget is stability, that we're here, that we have a path forward. And for the most part, what I'm hearing back is we've hit that target.
Now, the health budget went up by about $1 billion, Nathan. What benefits can we really expect here in Lethbridge out of the increased health budget?
Well, I don't have any details yet. I do expect that some of those capital expenses and projects will be announced throughout the year, as governments tend to do. So I don't have those details. But what I do know is that this South Zone, in terms of healthcare, has been leading the province in terms of efficiency, innovation programs, for years. They've done a great job with that. And I expect that whatever dollars they get or investment, capital investment they receive, it will be well used and well managed.
Now, the province has reached a tentative deal with doctors in the Alberta Medical Association. Do you think this will really keep doctors from leaving the province and hopefully attracting even maybe more physicians to Southern Alberta?
Absolutely. I can't speak much to the ongoing process. I know it needs to be ratified, but even the numbers would bear out that Alberta is still a very desired destination. In 2020, we actually had a net increase of almost 250 doctors coming to Alberta, even though we were in some challenging times. And again, stability is the word that allows that to continue to flourish and grow and meet the needs of our citizens here in Alberta.
Now, there were some cutbacks in education funding. To what degree will this affect Lethbridge College and the University of Lethbridge?
And yeah, I'll make a slight distinction there. It's education funding was stable or went up a little bit, but advanced ed, there were some reductions. That is a challenge, possibly more than any of my colleagues with a college and a university in town. It has a double impact. So I have met with both administrative teams. They are just excellent to work with. They've got a plan to work forward. I'm working with them on some innovative ideas, and hopefully some things would allow them some flexibility to make some of these transition and changes. They have been incredible to work with, and I have no doubt that they will lead not only Lethbridge, but the entire province in their sector in getting us through this to better days ahead.
You know, many students and post-secondary students and parents are really concerned that a lot of this will be passed on from the university and the college to the students with tuition increases, and then all of a sudden books are twice the price. How do you respond to that?
Well, there's a reality. There's a reality there for sure. I have 4 kids of university age this year, and 4 of them that will have taken part in some sort of class or course load. So I feel that personally. What I've said to most students and people along the way is people are willing to invest what's needed in their education if they have a job at the end. And that's where I can really make a difference and really focus and really work on making sure our economy gets on its feet. So that investment by the students is worth something at the end. It's one thing to ask them to chip in a little more without that hope in the future. But if that's there, let me tell you, Harvard isn't free, but they don't have any problem packing the house out and people paying top dollar. Why? Because they can get a really good job at the end. That's what I'm after in Alberta. And I'm working on the positive side of that equation. and doing what I can there, while also helping the university administrations doing what they can to manage their side of it.
Now, what about municipal funding, Nathan? Is the city of Lethbridge going to see any cutbacks or potential increases?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a story of both. So over a 4-year cycle, the funding is pretty constant with what they would have seen in a previous 4-year cycle. But due to economic pressures, mostly related to COVID and needing to relaunch Alberta, we've pulled a lot of that funding forward. So if we start today and look at the next 3 years, municipalities will see roughly a 25% decrease in funding, but we've pulled a lot of that funding forward. So this is really going to be on the shoulders of municipalities to plan well. Those dollars are here today to get us back on to the spending that they need to do for investment in their capital projects, and it'll roll out over the next couple of years. But again, you don't want to spend all your allowance today, Hal, and not save anything for tomorrow. So there's going to be a little planning needed.
Now, Nathan, there have also been some concerns voiced about provincial cutbacks to agriculture when it comes to applied research. As you know, here in southwestern Alberta, horticulture, agriculture, that's our bread and butter. Your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another one I'm keeping my eye on. I'm calling this one a ministry in transition. A lot of those dollars went from the agricultural file to our advanced education file. And we have top-notch institutions at the college and university. So I've asked them to work with research so we make sure we end up on the right side of this. But a lot of people have shared your concern, and I'm watching it closely to see where we end up and where we land on this. Having farmer-led research, having industry-led research is great, but it's also something that is, like you said, literally our bread and butter, and we want to watch that closely for the future.
Now, let's talk about funding when it comes to combating the opioid crisis here in southern Alberta and to help provide facilities for those to recover, maybe turn their lives around. Any new money coming in that regard?
We have maintained our commitment for $140 million a year ongoing for the province, and Lethbridge gets its the lion's share, not the lion's share. We get our fair share plus on that because we know we've really faced those issues recently. A lot of our announcements last year, we are actually seeing them come into being this year, whether it's an additional 150 treatment beds, whether it's $2 million of ongoing operational funding for facilities in Lethbridge and Fort Macleod. We have our drug court that actually came online in the fall and is now actively helping a lot of those people caught in that cycle to get into something better. So I think we've got really bright days ahead. Lethbridge has got a future to look forward to, and Lethbridge has definitely got funding to make some of those dreams a reality.
Now, is there any help being offered in the budget for the struggling energy sector?
There is actually. We partnered last year with the federal government to come up with $1 billion for oil well reclamation. About 500 million of that is going to be rolled out this year. So not only are we helping that sector, who we know is down on their knees, although the current prices are pretty good, we're also helping reclaim those abandoned oil wells, clean up our environment, get some of those things cleaned up that have been on the to-do list for decades, literally. And but we've also put forward initiatives in hydrogen, in geothermal, and in nuclear to again really help that energy side of our industry get back up on its feet.
I guess you can't put all your eggs into the oil and gas basket, right? It's good to diversify when it comes to the economy. Now let's chat a bit about the COVID-19 pandemic. Nathan, case numbers continue to come down, which is wonderful to see. Are we going to see more restrictions lifted fairly soon? And the reason I ask is business owners I talk to every day, they're struggling, as you know, especially here in Lethbridge. Like Len Benning, who owns the movie mill, he's not sure how much longer he can stay afloat.
Absolutely. I've heard that loud and clear, and that is what I'm advocating for, is to look at the whole approach again, and maybe in a new light. I think what we're seeing now is that, as you know, how humans are complex beings. We're not just physical. We have social needs, we have mental needs and emotional needs, we have spiritual needs. there are these sides of the equation that we haven't really looked at in order to protect people's lives on a medical front. We've done, I think, a reasonable job of that. But now we need to look at the rest of it. We need to open up all of our economy. People derive a huge amount of personal satisfaction and well-being when they go to work. We have to allow every single Albertan that opportunity, and yet do it in a way that's safe and protects those who might be vulnerable. So this is a challenge, but I'm advocating for a new look at that, to realize that we as humans, we're not just a one-dimension being, and we're not just a physical. Lots of seniors really talk about their need to see their children, their grandchildren, and we need to find a way to make this safe. Giving a person a hug is probably one of the best medicines we have. It's been around since day one, and I look forward to being able to get back to it.
Have you talked to many pastors as well? Because I know a lot of churches, still 15%, other ones doing online services. Look what's happened just outside of Edmonton with James Coates. He's now in jail. A pastor's in jail, if you can believe it or not. You know, and the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms is talking right now about his release potential to get him out before his trial date on May the 3rd. I never thought we'd reach this point. So what is the church, what is the religious community telling you right now, Nathan?
Well, I'm very, very thankful for all the religious leaders in Lethbridge. I've spoken to many of them. We haven't had that situation here because they have really taken the path of caring for others. We know that it's been a financial burden for them. We know it's been a challenge for them. Many of them have had to totally adjust their schedules and how they get together and do that in a safe way. But I really believe that they've taken a leadership approach and a very caring approach. And I would hope that Pastor Coates would be able to also realize that this pandemic has impacted every single one of us in a different way. This isn't just about one person changing their life. This is about all of us having to adjust our life and lifestyles. And it's about putting someone else first. It's not just about me. This is not about preaching the word. This is not about the religious side of it. He could go free tomorrow. This is about how do we protect others in a responsible and caring way. Believe me, none of us want to see pastors in jail.
Now, what about vaccines, Nathan? What is it looking like as to the availability and the actual administering of the vaccines coming in?
Well, I think each day we're getting more and more good news. AstraZeneca was put online. I hear Johnson & Johnson should be approved in the next few days. We are starting finally, after many months, to get a more consistent vaccine supply. And then I can't speak highly enough of doctors, nurses, pharmacists, dentists. Every single one of these professionals has offered to step up, or these groups have offered to step up. That way, every single dose we get to vaccine is going to end up in an arm very soon, much quicker. We know we've had some bumps on the road rolling out the program to seniors on day one, but since that time, we've really turned it around. We are now getting multiple calls every day with seniors who are able to book their vaccination. That gives them hope. These things are all important. And more than that, we have the competent healthcare professionals able to meet that demand when we get the supply.
Now, speaking of hope, let's talk and hope that perhaps Alberta doesn't have to pay as much into equalization payments. I know Premier Kenney's fighting for that. Where do we stand at this point in time? Because, I mean, we're struggling as a province here, and many Albertans argue that we can't afford to give away billions of dollars to help prop up other provinces when we're struggling ourselves.
For sure. And that's always a challenge. Alberta has always been right there to support and help every other province in Canada. This is a time where we need a little bit of help ourselves. And we continue to work on every level, every ministry, the Premier, to talk to the federal government and say, listen, this is a time where we need some help. Having a vote or referendum on equalization could send a combative tone. We need to let the federal government know that we're serious. We need them to work with us. I don't really want to go down that road any further than we have to. Everybody I talk to pretty much loves Canada. I love putting on the red and white at Olympic time. I love putting on the red and white whenever we're facing the Americans in any kind of situation. But we need a little help, and that street needs to go both ways. And we're doing what we can to make sure that we get recognized for the good that we bring the country year after year, faithfully and pretty much without complaint. So yeah, that's an ongoing discussion. As you know, it's not simple and it's not a one and done. We got to keep working at it.
Now, speaking of referendums, do you think there would be the potential of a referendum on an HST, a provincial sales tax, harmonized with the GST to help balance the books and get Alberta out of red and back into black? I mean, it'll take away the Alberta advantage. I'm a native Albertan like yourself, and I can't possibly see that happening in our province. But stranger things have happened, Nathan.
True. I think the Premier has been very clear that's not going to happen this year, and I would doubt it would happen this term. It's a conversation that we as Alberta need to have. If there was ever that conversation, it would absolutely go to a referendum, so Albertans would have their voice and their say. I, for one, have heard from quite a variety of people on that, and I couch it in the phrase of a tax reform. It's not the simple silver bullet. It's not going to save us from every woe. If we do introduce that, I think there needs to be consideration for seniors, those who are on a fixed budget, that there would be some exemption. So it's not just money in, there would also be money out. And that's why I say it's part of a larger conversation for me. And if we reform things to become more efficient, I'm okay with that. But it's not the magic bullet that's just going to save us from all of this.
Nathan Neudorf, UCP, MLA for Lethbridge East. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Al. Appreciate it.